Alright guys, so this is a recap of our last week in our Secret series, and this week we talked about don't be afraid to fail. Failure is a thing that none of us enjoy, but at the same time it's something that can help you become a better person. It can actually help you succeed later on. So we got to understand what failure is and understand it in the context of God's eyes and how He wants us to live. So there are some dumb things you could fail at, right? Like you could decide to jump out of an airplane without a parachute, and you will most definitely fail. It will kill you, right? So we're not talking about making big, dumb, stupid risks that you know you're going to fail, but it's about going after those things that are challenging, that are difficult to do, but are worth it because they'll pay off. So the reason we're really scared of failure, though, as a society, I think, is because we love, as a culture, to make fun of people when they fail. Go to the supermarket and in the checkout lines where they have all the tabloids and stuff, right? All of the pictures up there are about famous people who have failed. Blah, blah, blah got fat, blah, blah, blah got drunk and thrown in jail, right? Like, that's what, and we love making fun of them. Like, that's what talk shows do all the time, right? Like, they just make fun of the famous people and how they've screwed up. And we see that, and that builds something into us if we know it or not. And the message there is, don't fail because people are going to make fun of you a lot. And it's true, people might make fun of you when you fail, but if you're doing it for a good reason, if you're striving for something worthwhile, you know, it might be okay to fail. So we're going to kind of talk about that today. First off, we're going to say the point of life is not to not fail. I'm going to say that again. The point of life is not to not fail, right? Our whole goal in life shouldn't be to not make mistakes so we don't look stupid, right? Like if that's your goal in life, you are not going to lead a remarkable life. You're not going to learn how to do anything well. You're not going to accomplish anything big. Success isn't going to be easy for you because you're just going to kind of go with everything and be really bland, right? If you want to live an exciting, full life, if you want to accomplish something big, you want to make an impact in people's lives, change the world in some way, guess what? You're going to have to be willing to fail. So, the greatest people who do the biggest things in life have some of the most monumental failures. The biggest difference is that successful people fail, but they don't call themselves failures. They don't let themselves get labeled as that, right? They keep moving forward. Sometimes when we make mistakes, we're like, oh, I suck at that, and you just give up forever, right? But successful people keep moving forward with it. They learn, they make adjustments, and they try again. With each failure, they're finding a more profound way of becoming successful, right? So I want to read some quotes from some really famous people about failure and how they've dealt with it in their lives. The first one is from Henry Ford. It's one of my favorite quotes. Henry Ford, the guy who made Ford Motor Company, right? He went bankrupt 11 times. So that meant that he bit off more than he could chew. He tried to start a company, start building cars, and he failed 11 times. But guess what? He didn't give up. And now we all have cars because of his manufacturing process that taught every other car maker in the entire world how to do it. He didn't give up. And he says, if you think you can or if you think you can't, you're right. Right? So he's talking about the power of expectations there, right? If you think you can do something, you probably can do it. And if you think you can't, you're probably not going to succeed, right? He's saying failure and success, a lot of it is in your head. Now that doesn't mean it's going to change like the external factors. Like something is still going to be really difficult to do. You might still fail at it. But if you have a better mindset, if you have higher expectations for yourself, chances are you have a better chance of succeeding, right? There's this wonderful study they did about kids in school, and they had kids who got the exact same test scores the year before, and then they go into the next year, and they told this one class's teacher that these kids are underachievers. So this teacher didn't expect much from the kids at all. And then the other kids, again with the same grades as the kids over here, they told this teacher that these guys are the smart kids, like these are really high achievers, so you should expect more from them. And she did, and guess what? At the end of the year, there was a pretty big discrepancy in how much they learned, right? The kids that had low expectations didn't learn that much. The kids that had high expectations learned a whole lot more. It pays off to have higher expectations. Whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. Another couple ones here from Winston Churchill. Success is not final and failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Remember, keep pushing forward even when you fail, right? And he also said this: to improve is to change, to be perfect is to change often. So if you want to get better at something, right, you have to change. Like if you fail at something and you want to improve, you have to change something. He's like, if you want to be perfect at something, you have to constantly be willing to change. So that means we have to not hold on to things like that. Abraham Lincoln says, my great concern is not whether you have failed, but whether you are content with your failure. Sometimes we get content with our failure. We're like, oh, it's okay. He's like, don't be okay with failing. Be willing to push forward. And this is my favorite one probably, from Theodore Roosevelt. He said, it is hard to fail, but it is worse never to have tried to succeed. It's worse to never have tried to succeed because you won't accomplish anything. One of the things we talked about in our small groups was what would happen if people never failed. Like, we're not talking about living in a universe where no one could fail. We're talking about if people never tried anything and actually failed. And we realized that we wouldn't have most of anything we enjoy today. Like, there would be no inventions at all. Because when you try and make an invention, guess what? You fail a ton, but you keep persevering and you make stuff. So I want you guys to remember that your teenage years aren't some mystical period that are disconnected from the rest of your lives. For good or bad, they're going to launch you into the future, your future. So if there was a surefire training program to help you live a good life, guaranteed to give you good results, wouldn't you want to take it? And God has given us that. Now, there's nothing in the Bible you open up, it's like 90 days to get spiritually ripped. Like, there's nothing like that in the Bible. But God, the entire time, is speaking to people, showing people through things, through Jesus, saying, if you want to live a good life, if you want to have a good life, these are the things you should do. We should be humble. We should love each other. We should pray to God. We should read His Word. We should talk to other people about Him. We should serve other people, right? These are the things that give us good life. So we need to practice it. So just like if you were trying to get strong and you're exercising, like if you're doing push-ups, if you can do push-ups all day, like if you do like 10 push-ups, say, and you get done, you're like, woo, I'm done. Like, you didn't really make yourself that much stronger if it wasn't that hard for you. The way you get stronger is that one where you fail, the one where you're doing the push-up and your arms are shaky and they give out and you fall flat on the ground on your face. That's the one that actually made you stronger than all the push-ups before that, because you pushed yourself to the point where you failed. And your muscles respond to that and get stronger. In the same way, our minds do that. Here's a thing from the Bible. Paul wrote this to the people in Corinth, and this is in 1 Corinthians chapter 9. And he says, don't you realize that in a race everyone runs, but only one person gets the prize? So run to win. He says, all athletes are disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade away, but we do it for an eternal prize, right? We have a chance to live for an eternal prize. Like, it's not just like something to get strong or be the fastest or be the best at something down here. God wants us to live a good, amazing life so that way when we get into heaven, He can give us amazing chances and opportunities to serve Him up there. But if we don't work hard down here, we're not going to be ready for the work up there. So remember, be disciplined in your training. Take time to do it. Take the time to pray. Take the time to read the Bible. Take time to ask questions about it and ask other people to look up the answers to it, to talk to God about it, whatever it is. And lastly, we're going to talk about a Bible verse here in Romans that sometimes Christians misuse. But I think it talks about failure really well. It says, and we know that all that happens to us is working for our good if we love God and are fitting into His plans. So you might hear other people quote this and say, all things work together for the glory of God, right? And some people say that when bad stuff happens. But guess what? When something really awful happens, like if someone dies, like that doesn't work together for the glory of God sometimes, right? Like if a baby dies or, so we don't want to say that everything works together for the glory of God. What this verse is really saying is that if you are working for what God wants you to do, if you're working hard for Him, that failing is going to be okay because you will mess up, but guess what? You can learn from that and apply it later. Or if you've made like a big mistake in your life and God helped you through it, went through a really hard time and something bad happened, but God helped you through it, you can be hope to someone who's going through that now, and you can show God's grace and love and mercy in that. So that's what that verse means. It doesn't mean that everything is good. It means that even in our mistakes, even in our failures, even when the world kicks us in the face, God gets us through that, and we can use that as a story of showing God's love and mercy and hope to other people. So remember, don't be afraid to fail. Be willing to try new things. Be willing to get out of your comfort zone. Be willing to do stuff that is difficult, so that way you can grow and live a life that is excellent in God's eyes, and people will notice too. Love you guys. God bless.